What happened losing $1 million and how that ended up being a gift?
What's our old mentor, Tony Robbins, say about pain? I think he calls it a gift from above or something along those lines. But I basically went through a season where 5 or 6 things in entrepreneurship and business, you place a lot of bets and you expect some of them to work out. I had a season where nothing was working out. My main cash cow business, my real estate business at the time, disintegrated. I had a real estate investment that went really bad, lost 250 grand on that. That created basically a perfect storm of implosion that you don't really expect, but you get wiser from those implosions. I lost $1 million in about 12 to 18 months and had to reset everything. Ultimately, right after that, by the time I got my head above water, my wife got pregnant, and that began a 2.5-year depression battle and mental health battle. And she's a 3-time suicide survivor. So she got triggered by a lot of childhood trauma. And so then we're in a much deeper fight than losing $1 million. That was a brutal season, but learned a ton about trauma, mental health, and just how honestly fragile all of us are to some extent. So I have so much more empathy now.
What did you learn about trauma that you didn't already know that might be surprising for our listener?
So I'm a master NLP practitioner, and I've done a lot of deep mindset work and help rewire a lot of people around their mindset. But one of the things that happens for someone that's truly severely trauma affected is those memories are almost stored in your body. That's why they call it PTSD, post-traumatic stress disorder, where this thing happens and activates in a sensory way a non-conscious response. For example, our daughter would cry, which is normal for a baby. And if she cried longer than 15 or 30 seconds, it would start triggering my wife's nervous system back to her traumatic childhood. And so for 2.5 years, both in pregnancy was also traumatic for her. She had a really rough pregnancy, but also all these traumas and fears of her sense of overwhelm. She was the oldest of 11 kids, very abusive upbringing. There's all this pain that we thought she had cleared, but honestly, it came roaring back. I had to realize this is not as simple as just a positive mindset. This is like a deep nervous system reset that is needed. We could have done SSRIs, but if you look at the research, they help people temporarily and they help people cope, but they don't help people heal. And we were interested in healing and trying a lot of different approaches from neurofeedback, NAD IV, which was very helpful for healing, somatic psychotherapy. But the biggest kicker was psychedelic-assisted therapy, because her neurowiring basically needed a massive reset. And we needed to flood her brain with neuroplasticity. And according to research, when you're on a lot of these substances, the psychedelics, done safely and wisely in a safe container, it basically doubles your neuroplasticity from anywhere from 2 to 14 days, which allows us to repattern or reprogram a lot of these subconscious triggers.
How did you discover it? How did it get implemented? Did you guys have to go out of the country to somewhere where psychedelics are considered legal, or tell us more?
I'll mention we started somatic psychotherapy, heavily influenced by Dr. Peter Levine's work, Healing Trauma, which is the first book I read on trauma. So we started that in January 2022, made a huge difference in knowing how to just manage and navigate. But then it just wasn't enough. She was still moving such deep work. And then we did neurofeedback. That seemed to help her anxiety. Her anxiety dropped, gave her mental energy and her physical energy and vitality back. But then in the fall of 2022, we realized, man, she just keeps getting triggered into a cascading spiral of depression when our daughter cries, which is pretty normal for a toddler, as you well know. And so I started realizing, this is complex PTSD, because I listened to 100 podcasts on mental health and trauma and read a dozen books or so in a short time period. We found a therapist willing to do a psychedelic-assisted therapy session in the States. That therapist was amazing, and it was a 5-hour therapy session. The day before we did the session, our daughter cried for a couple minutes, and my wife went into a depression spiral for the next 4 hours, literally crying on the basement steps for 2 hours, coming up, basically in a depression funk for another 2 hours, and even a cloud the next day. Then the next day, we do the session, and it's 5 hours long. She comes back home the Thursday, one day after that session. Our daughter has an 18-minute temper tantrum meltdown, just ballistic, just insane. My wife is able to laugh. She has that cognitive disassociation. It doesn't trigger her nervous system. I like to say it's not necessarily your fault, but it is your responsibility. And her nervous system was programmed from her childhood. She couldn't control that, but it was her responsibility and our responsibility to help get it reprogrammed. Since then, we've been able to start functioning normally again. There's still a little bit of PTSD we're clearing out. We're going to do another ketamine-assisted this round, which is legal in Tennessee. So we're going to do that, ketamine-assisted therapy session. And I expect that complex PTSD is incurable according to APA. I don't believe it. Based on my anecdotal evidence, she claims she's cured of depression. I would say so too. And the PTSD, we're pretty darn close to having that 100% taken care of too.